So again, thanks to everyone for joining us. We really appreciate you guys taking the time to come and listen to our updates and hear from some of our community members chatting about things they're working on. Just to give a quick update on the Cube 100 platform that we've been working on. We've been working on some proof of concept equipment, first of all, to make sure that running Kubernetes as an underlying platform for our new infrastructure will work, and that it's performant and it's most importantly stable. We want to make sure that some of the problems that have plagued the OpenStack infrastructure that we run don't repeat themselves in the Kubernetes world. And that's going really well. We've had some test virtual machines out in the hands of actual alpha testing customers, and so far they haven't been able to break the underlying platform, which is awesome. The staging equipment is due to arrive with us in a few weeks, so that will help us work on the automation of how to get our platform up from here's a new set of equipment into an installed region so that we can ship these out to different data centers around the world. So far so good. Keep your eyes on our community Slack for updates as we start to sort of release more information into a wider group of audience. But yeah, the new platform seems to be working well and going to plan so far. So. Okay, so it's just a quick update from me today. So we'll now go into the talks. And first up, we've got Saiyam, who is our newly appointed Director of Tech Evangelism, on making developer life easy using the Civo Marketplace. So over to you, Saiyam, if you want to share screen.
Yep, thank you, Andy. Can you enable the screen?
There we go, just done it.
Awesome. Okay, so hello everyone, and thank you so much for joining today's session. First of all, I'm really excited to be on the Civo team. I have been working with them when I was a community member, and now I'm working as Director of Technical Evangelism, and there are lots of things coming up for the community. So this is about myself. I'm CKD certified, CNCF ambassador, Docker community leader, and run meetups, and I'm an Influx ace. And today we'll be talking about developers life easy. So basically, it's kind of a storyline that I have prepared. So since long time, the focus of the industry, the IT industry, has been to make the developers life easy, and that's where we are headed at. So starting from back, we have virtual machines. Then we came to containers, then Kubernetes, then making again it simplified K3s, and then we have our managed K3s, and then on top of it we have Kubernetes Marketplace, which is the whole agenda that I'll be talking about. So you can see like virtual machine is just simple VM that you have hardware, hypervisor, few VMs running on that. It's completely software defined, and basically any compute instances that you run in the cloud. So you will be seeing like VMs terminology. So those are actually the virtual machines running on the hardwares. Then coming another level up for helping the developers, it's containers, so that you on the same hardware and on the same OS, you will be able to run multiple containers, which will be multiple microservices, in turn multiple applications. So, the packaging of dependencies, flexibility of writing the languages, and all those things will be part of the containers. Now, taking the next level, orchestrating the containers, comes Kubernetes into place. So Kubernetes is container orchestrator, and you have just a basic diagram of control plane and a node, the basic architecture that is there. So basically, it's actually orchestrating your containers. So you have hundreds, thousands of containers. So you need someone to orchestrate it, and Kubernetes is the de facto standard as per today. So you have your Kubernetes Kubernetes orchestrator, and it will take care of the deployment, the scaling, the maintaining the desired state to the actual state of the cluster. So all those things again made the life of the developer easy. Now coming to the next portion, which is K3s. So K3s is a distribution, a Kubernetes distribution, CNCF certified. It's 50 MB, close to 50 MB binary as of 1.19.2 release. It's basically a trimmed down version of K8. So whatever you run in Kubernetes like kubectl get pods, you can run as it is in kubectl get pods in a K3s cluster as well. So you can run it on Raspberry Pi, you can run it on any infrastructure, on small devices, very good for development, but it is production ready, and that's what we offer. So again, making developers' life easy over there. Now coming to Civo's managed K3s. So we took another step, and we saw the great potential that K3s is having. And though now it is actually a CNCF sandbox project, so it's you can see the credibility that K3s has and the amount of adoption in the community that it has. So now we have Civo's managed K3s, which is again super fast, super light, and easy to use managed K3s service powered by Civo. Now, again, making developers' life easy. Now coming to the main thing, which is Kubernetes Marketplace. So we have taken it to another level in making the developers' life easy, which is Kubernetes Marketplace. So you might have heard of all the marketplaces that are there around, but what's special in Civo Marketplace is it's actually built by the community for the community. So most of the applications, they are built by our community members, and they are being used by our community members. And some of them I have highlighted over here. So it's just a single click install. So when I just click on any application, I don't have to do anything. And when you run a Kubernetes cluster, you actually need basic set of applications, and every customer or every user or every community member has different needs. So I might be a person. So whenever I install my Kubernetes cluster, I have few things which I definitely need, and I install them, whenever I'm creating the cluster. So I need them. Similarly, when you have small organizations, mid-level organizations, high level, large scale organization. So all those Kubernetes clusters that people are running, they cannot run plain clusters and just their applications. So there are certain specific applications which are available. Basically, these are another softwares or another projects that are available open source, which we help in deploying by one click. So you don't have to take care about getting the YAMLs, doing the configurations and anything. So you can directly deploy them onto your clusters. So this is a simple user. So this small little guy is our community user. So what he does is he logs in and from the Civo CLI, he does a Civo K3s create and install a application -f application, and gives the application that has to be installed. So you can see when the cluster gets created in the application section, you can see Rancher is already present. So that's how fast it is. So the cluster gets actually created with Rancher installed. You didn't even touch anything. You didn't even went to Rancher website and see the installation docs, how it is happening, expose it. You have to create cluster role binding, the deployment, all those things. You don't have to worry about that. Again, from the UI, you can check the Rancher is installed, and every application has a post-install steps, like after the installation, how you can access the URL, how you can access the web UI, so all those things. So in this particular scenario, there is a post-install step of ingress. As you apply the ingress, you can see on the bottom right, you have a Rancher dashboard ready. And the main thing, so the maintainers are community members, and as and when any update comes to the application, it gets updated, because the community is very engaging. They are very up to date. So yesterday itself 2.5.0 was released, and we already have that on a Civo Marketplace. So that's how quick it is. Now, so like I told you, marketplace is by the community and for the community. So on the left hand side, you can see a long list of, actually the list is much longer than this. I couldn't take a complete screenshot and fit here. So there are a lot of applications, more than 30 plus, I believe. So that you can readily install right from your cluster or from the CLI. Now comes to the contribution part. So how the community is contributing day in, day out to the Kubernetes marketplace. And you can see various announcements that happen on Kube100 Slack channel every week. This is the new application by our community member. This is the new application by our community member. So you can have, as of now, we still do support Helm 2. So Helm 2 charts or Helm 2 installation apps are readily available. You can install Helm 3 apps via the K3s CRD, which is supported. Then the plain YAML files, if you have specific YAML files that you have, then you can install that. You can also use install.sh and include dependencies as well. I'd like to show you more in this part. So just, I don't have much of the demo over here, but the command that I show you, I'll run it and we can see that it does create. So it is creating a new cluster, and in the meanwhile, when it gets created, I'll show you some of the other things. So this is a link of Civo Marketplace. So this is the repository where the actual fun is happening. So you have all these applications which are listed on the UI, and you can readily install them. Now, basic structure includes, just go to any application. Basic structure includes 4 to 5 files. Install, manifest, post install. And if install is not there, then there will be app.yaml, which will be the plain YAML files. So quickly, I want to touch upon 2 things. The manifest file. So the manifest file is the one where you can have the dependencies. So you know that, so this particular application, take a good example. WordPress is the application. It depends on a DB, and we have Longhorn. So the dependencies we define over here. So when we click on WordPress, that automatically the dependencies will get installed in the marketplace in the backend, and then this particular application will get installed, so that you don't have to install the dependent applications on that. So that's how the dependencies work. Now you have different plans that you can give. So like on the DB side or on the WordPress side, you want to have different storage options. So you can define them under the plans. So this all magic happens in the manifest.yaml. Now there are certain configurations as well that you can do, which is by supplying the IDs. So we have like Civo cluster ID is there, and you can define the configuration cluster ID with the label and the value Civo cluster ID. So it will automatically pick up the cluster ID for your cluster when you install the app. So that whole magic happens behind the scenes. Now in the WordPress YAML, you can see how to use those variables is just with a dollar symbol. So I'll just increase the size. So WordPress.dollar cluster ID that we have defined in the manifest will automatically come here. And when you go to wordpress.yourclusterid.kh.civo.com, after installing the WordPress app, boom, your WordPress application will be there, and you didn't touch anything. So that's the beauty of it. So that's how your life is easy. That's how at least my life is easy. And I believe we have hundreds and hundreds of install going on every month of marketplace applications, and people are actually loving it and using it. That's why they are contributing it as well. Another quick thing that I want to show is the install.sh. So sometimes there is like you need to have some of the installations that you want to do before applying the YAMLs that you can do. And sometimes you want to do a curl and then install some application, that also you can do. So that all comes in install.sh when you don't have the app YAML files ready, and there is a ready-made thing that you want to use from the install.sh. So that all things also you can use in install.sh. I mean, it's that much configurable. So that's pretty much it. And I believe if I refresh, there should be a cluster which is in progress. Okay, it's already created. If I go here, there should be Rancher, which is already deployed. So that's how easy it is. I already deployed Rancher. And if I just, apply this, if you want, and I have to get the kubeconfig file as well. Actually, I can get from here. Oh, I have to give the cluster name to Light Garden. I mean, it's fine. I'll delete that cluster later. So kubectl apply -kube config equal to test and ing. Oops, I didn't type -f. So the ingress is created, and we have, I believe the pod should be up and running if we want to check. Oops. Can't have so many things. Yes, I see all the pods are up and running. So means if I go to the URL and try it out, so we can see that the rancher is up and running in few minutes of the talk itself. So this is the 2.5.0. It's very good. So you can try it out on Civo cluster. So that's it that I had for my talk. So go ahead and contribute more. I will be, very happy for your new contributions, and whatever app you have, let's have it in Civo Marketplace. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Saiyam. I just wanted to add as well, if anyone wants to contribute an application to the marketplace, don't worry about getting it wrong. We're very happy to work with the community to help get it in working shape and add it to our site. Don't think there's going to be any sort of shame if you want to do something but don't know how to get started. I mean, tonight's talks will help you, but again, we're willing to work with people, so just give it a bash and see where you go. Okay, so handing over now to Kai with steps to contribute a new app to the Civo Marketplace.
Yeah, hi everybody. I hope you can hear me. So here we go. We're going to do my fancy presentation first. So thanks to Saiyam for the introduction to the marketplace. I'm going to run briefly over some of the basic things just for reiteration's sake, but it won't be too self-repeating. So basically, like Saiyam was saying, the marketplace is open source. You set the direction as a community member. If there's something that you think is cool and should be on the marketplace, you can either add it yourself if you feel confident. You can ask us for help, just like Andy was saying, if you don't feel as confident, or you can just sort of, suggest like, how about X? And then, somebody, either one of us or another, community member could run with it and get it up there for you. It's all maintained on GitHub as open source software. So you add applications by raising a pull request, which is what we're going to do hopefully today. And the idea of the marketplace is that it's designed to get you up and running as quickly as possible. None of us necessarily enjoy tinkering with the same things every time we install a cluster. We all, like Saiyam was saying, we all have the sort of basic building blocks that we tend to work with. So why not automate having those every time that you're deploying a new, as I've said here, herd of cattle or a cluster. Why contribute? First of all, if you've got an app that you like to use, think is useful, chances are that there's others out there that would also think that it's cool. I think it's like important to not underestimate the fact that there are so many things out there that people honestly aren't going to know about unless you shout about them being cool and them being useful. So if you have encountered something that you find is providing you with functionality that you like, add it in. Like it's genuinely helpful to everybody. You can also speed up your own development time as well as helping others. Plus the all-important open source cred. We are in Hacktoberfest. This is not a Hacktoberfest repository, but then again, every contribution counts for your personal sense of cred. There's a couple of things that you need to consider if you have an app that you think would be useful in the marketplace. So the first thing would be that you test a manual installation of the files that you're that make up the application, the YAMLs, the configurations, the resource definitions, etc., onto a fresh cluster, just making sure that when applied manually, your manifests and everything else work. Then you kind of have to keep an eye out on new versions of the app that you're adding. So you probably are anyway, because you're interested in the app, but you're sort of, it would be really helpful if you're kind of clued into that app's development, so that if there's a major new version, we can get that updated in ASAP. And then the other thing would be to just have like a really clear set of instructions for any post-installation things, such as having the ingress created based on your specific clusters specifications. The other things that to consider for contribution would be to write a guide to deploying and basic usage of the app. Not all apps are things like WordPress that everybody's familiar with. So if you want to just have a kind of cool little description of what is what's special about that app, then that would be cool. And then for extra credit, do a community talk. These are fun. Take 10 minutes of your day. I mean, plus the time that you actually make the slides. So for the demo that we're going to, fingers crossed, do, we're going to raise a pull request for the Jaeger operator. And we're going to start with a fresh cluster. I've prepared the manifest files based on the Jaeger operation manifests, done a little tiny bit of customization specific for Civo, mostly sort of removing GKE things that they were already in there. And we're going to apply that manifest manually, confirm that it works, and then raise a pull request to the repository with the other files that are required. So the post-installation file, a little image icon to show, and a description of the app. I'll run through them as we go through. And then hopefully we can get the pull request merged and the Civo site redeployed, allowing you to use Jaeger tonight after this, this session. So fingers crossed, everybody. We're going to start by very quickly so this is my personal fork of the Kubernetes Marketplace. And I have not committed anything to it, but we'll be starting the pull request from here. This is the Jaeger operator that has a whole bunch of files, some of them fairly long, that I consolidated into our app. So the actual app YAML is something like 10,000 lines long, because it's got a ton of things that it then monitors for various types of resources, but I've mostly just sort of consolidated all of it. The other thing is I have written a tiny description. Jaeger operator is a Kubernetes operator implementation of the Jaeger distributed tracing tool, which is going to appear in the little box when you click on the marketplace. And I've chosen a category for it, and this specifies the current version of the application that I am adding to the marketplace. The logo needs to be a PNG of not very big, because they sort of load up as little things. And then this is the tiny post-installation markdown document that gets added. So without further ado, let's, can you just confirm that you can read this terminal screen sort of? Yeah, all good. So this is the same folder. So we've got the app.yaml, and it's a fresh cluster with nothing deployed in it. As you can see above here, I've just sort of done so it's got the default applications of Trafic, which handles ingress, and the metric server, which is part of K3s. So we're going to apply this app.yaml, and it creates all the bits that it needs. And then if we do the, while it's running those additions, and what we're going to do is create this, this type of Jaeger object that will then allow us to view it. So what we're going to do is create a file. And apply that So now, hopefully, we should be able to we've got Jaeger running on there on the cluster. So let's take a look at our Civo account, where we should see the cluster details. And let's get the URL of the, oh, that's not good. That was unexpected. May not have been applied yet, or come up live yet. Demigods be damned. Basically, what that would should show is the is this part here, which shows the simplest query showing on the port on the default ingress port. I'm going to have to investigate why that's not showing up during the next talk, but once I do, we're going to put this pull request through and hopefully get that redeployed. Sorry about that not showing up. It definitely did when I was practicing, but yeah, we're going to come back to my presentation toward the end anyway. So I'm going to hand it now back to Andy.
Thanks, Kai. Always hate live demos. Okay, so next we're going to hand over to Steve, who is going to be talking about automation tests and tools for your Civo Marketplace application.
Cool, thanks, Andy. And hopefully the demo guides are good to me as well, but we'll see how this all goes. So
everyone keep your fingers crossed for Steve.
yes. All right, just need to, oh, there's share. Yes. All right, hopefully seeing now my desktop now. There we go, and hopefully the presentation as well. So automating tools and tests, and this was mainly to scratch an itch I had. Just to give some background to myself, I'm Steve Miller. I'm a senior system engineer for Plex Systems. That's not the Plex, that's the cool TV app. They actually do manufacturing ERPs, so a lot more boring than GUI applications. But we do a lot of containerization and some other interesting things. So that's my day job. But for fun, I like contributing to the Civo Marketplace and really, kicking the tires on a, distributed K3S cluster that I can spin up and down at will, so, or clusters. So a lot of my goals for this talk is going over some of the tooling I developed just to make my life easier, like one of those scratch my own itches and like, hey, maybe other people will find this helpful. So I developed a few basic tooling. I try to stick with some around make files and some other like common utilities. So hopefully, a lot of this is tried and true technologies. And what I did is I decided to split out a lot of my, my templates into a separate repo just to provide kind of a templated experience of my make files and some of the other things. So hopefully provides a better experience if you're starting out with a new project, you want to use some of these instead of, you can copy from my existing projects, but I think this will provide a cleaner experience. Just a warning, this is technically a working Civo Marketplace app, but it's has my personal blog embedded as an app. So I encourage you not to submit this to the Marketplace. I don't think that really would make any sense for a Civo Marketplace app. No one wants to see my blog on there. At least I don't think so. And if you do, you can just always pull down the repo. It's all open source. So in any case, for today's demo, what I'm going to do is actually do a live update on my Keptn, which is or Keptn app, which is a Google-sponsored CI/CD pipeline application. So, but around that, we can kind of demo a lot of the testing tools and functionality that I have. So we'll go to my repo. And then, so this is, hopefully you see my Visual Studio. This is branched from my personal Civo Marketplace on my GitHub. And we have the Keptn directory. So since it was already built out, it has all those components Kai had mentioned, right? A manifest YAML, logo, all those other bits and pieces. What I generally like, since my applications tend to be slightly more complex, I actually embed a readme.md, certainly not required, but it's more of if you trip across my app, you have a better idea of what in the world am I doing with this make file and some of these other stranger components that aren't in most marketplace applications. So hopefully it gives you at least a starting point for what commands to run. And sometimes a good reminder to yourself if you haven't touched something in a while, like what was the make command, other than looking at the make file. So so I generally like to include readmes in mine. And then the make file, which really is where a lot of the magic happens for my templating solutions. A very basic make file, I tend to have variables defining, the version and commands and some other kind of higher level constructs. So they're very easy to change between projects. And we'll see how that helps in a bit. So before my Civo app, I think it was at 0.14 before. So if you actually look at the marketplace today, that's the app that's currently in the marketplace. So I wanted to update to 0.17. Let's see, we're in the right place. So I'm going to write a make clean. So as part of what I'd like to do is automate the entire build of the app.yaml. And I'm kind of assuming that you're using a pure manifest. So if you're using scripts, it might work a little differently, but I assume similar techniques, depending on the application itself, could be helpful. So, and as Kai had mentioned, like you had to pull down some YAML. So what I do is I just automate pulling that down. Now, if you actually look at the Civo app, I didn't have these particular separators in place because on 0.14 it worked fine. But on 0.17, when I decided to update this morning, I ran my build pipeline to make the app YAML. And as part of the make file, I actually run a quick test to do a dry run just to make sure that the YAML manifests are sane, right? That I'm not going to continue any further if it's illegitimate. And of course you fail. Or should I save that? Maybe I didn't. I swear it broke. I thought this would be a cool, like, hey, look at test automation. It broke and I detected it. Demo gods are not being happy with me, apparently. It's invading our entire, okay, there we go. So this is what happened. I decided to update this morning, like, oh, this will be great. And then I go and I get this error. What in the world happened? I'm going to save you as, I'm pretty sure that generated app YAML is, yeah, it's 3,000 lines. So I'll save you the pain and measure of what I went through this morning. But what happened is there was no automatic separation between these three YAMLs, right? So, okay, cool. I'll fix my make file. So we'll make clean, which will get rid of the app YAML. Make build, which runs all the build steps and the basic test just to make sure the YAML's valid. I was figuring this would be the quick part, but okay, there we go. So we have a clean YAML, right? Like structurally it is sound. There are no major errors, no typos or anything like that. So we know at least we're starting from a relatively clean place. So now we have all 17 in YAML files. And just to show the, yeah, actually you can see the code up there, just a bunch of curl commands and, the kube control apply dry run. So fairly basic Kubernetes stuff, but just, embedded in make file to just kind of make life easier. All right. So once I have that, as Kai had mentioned, it's nice to actually run a test, right? That you're not deploying you're not going to submit a PR before you've actually tested that this thing works, right? So Keptn being fairly complicated, testing's a bit interesting, so it's nice to actually embed that. And what I do is most of the test is buried. There's a test target that will actually build out a cluster and do a clean. So I'm going to try to do a clean, brand new cluster and test. We'll see how that works. If that doesn't work, we'll go from there. So make test. 1 minute. I just realized I had a partial test, so this may not work. Or I had a partial cluster already built out. And I did, and it's stuck in installing. So I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to go to my backup. So just to point out, like in this makefile, you notice these are question equals. That means all these environment variables can be quickly overridden by the environment, right? So that way I can quickly customize how this makefile is without editing it. So based on that, I've already pre-built a cluster in case this happened. So we'll see if this works. Yeah, it's like, right. So I'm going to basically override the clustering into Keptn back, which I've already created, and I have a kube config in my local repo. Now I've already deployed Keptn, so that's why you see like most of these are unchanged, a few reconfigurations, but it's basically applying the app YAML. It's part of my structure. Let me go down to the test so we can follow along. So yep, here I'm applying the app YAML, and what I'm going to do is create, these are custom resources that are used by Keptn itself. So I'm basically creating a task and a task run to run a very basic hello world pipeline. And then here I'm getting that custom resource, this task run, outputting it to JSON, pulling the JSON content and seeing if it's succeeded or not. So very basic test and very dependent on your application. I'm going to go to that repo, my templated repo, which is a more basic test because it's an Nginx web server, right, that's being pulled up. So for that test, what I'm doing is I'm just doing a quick job. I'm applying a job. And in that job, it's simply a busybox container, and it's running a wget against the service. Super basic, right? Just make sure the container comes up and it works. So even if that's all you do with your test, I think it's legitimate, right? At least the YAML came up and there's something listening on the port that I expect. So it tends to get a little challenging depending on how sophisticated you want to make tests, but I try to keep it at least as a bare bones, like, does it work or not? And as we saw this test, it succeeded. So yay, and now I'm ready to prepare, actually I'm ready, this branch is already created, so I'll probably submit the PR to this later this afternoon or evening, at least in the US time, since I'm noon right now. So future considerations, I've considered putting this more in a build pipeline and possibly Dockerizing this entire process so it's not dependent on my local environment. I'd like to figure out a way to test, none of my particular marketplace apps use marketplace variables, but if they do, I'd like to have a better story about testing those if I do have a variable that needs to be included in testing various failure scenarios. And more sophisticated testing suites, I understand, like, especially if you have a web app, maybe you want to run something like Selenium or something that's a more sophisticated, go through, log in, make sure it works, versus just, you know, make sure the service is up and running. And depending on your specific app, really depends on how sophisticated you want to make such tasks. But certainly open to other ideas, better ways of doing this, build pipelines to use. But so far, it's working for me. And yeah, I'd certainly encourage, especially any device, places to go. So any questions from the group? Or do we wait for questions at the end? Because I don't know the process.
There's been no questions submitted so far, but if anyone does post them, then we'll get to questions after the talk then.
Sounds perfect. Thank you.
And if you have any further ideas on how to improve the process for marketplace authors, get in touch with Saiyam, who is working on what needs to be the next version of our marketplace. That's all we can say right now, but tweaks are coming. So yeah, if you have anything that you think would really help out, then Saiyam's your person to go to. Okay, handing over next to Jürgen, talking about multi-stage continuous delivery with Keptn on Civo. And Keptn is one of our most recently added apps, so very exciting for those of you that haven't used this yet.
Thank you. So hopefully everything will work out here. Let me just move the controls a little bit. So, and here we go. Yeah, thanks. My name's Jürgen. I'm heavily involved in an open source project called Keptn, which I will talk about briefly today. I work for a company called Dynatrace, which was initiating this open source project. And for today, I want to briefly show you what you can do with Keptn. on Civo, and also kind of related to the whole ecosystem, because everything I've heard really relates also to how Keptn got into the marketplace, into the Civo Marketplace. So first, what is Keptn? I'm not sure if you've heard of it before. Keptn is now a cloud native computing foundation project. It's in the sandbox state, and it's part of the, let's say, CI/CD space. And it's really an event-based control plane for continuous delivery and automated operations. It's kind of a long sentence, there's a lot of buzzwords in it, but the important part is it's not another continuous delivery solution, but it's really more a control plane where you can plug in your continuous delivery solutions that you might already have, or use the capabilities of Keptn to do it. And it's also a control plane for automated operations. So think of automated operations, something like triggering some remediation actions, triggering self-healing actions in case something goes wrong, and Keptn is receiving events. So Keptn can then trigger other actions as counter actions for those events. It's event-based in the sense that it will receive cloud events, but not events in the sense of Kubernetes events, but it's just like JSON or YAML events. It can receive and then act upon these events. I've sketched here like a little bit how conceptually Keptn works. It's being this control plane. It has its own configuration service, so everything in Keptn is GitOps based. It has services for deployment. It can trigger testing services. It has its own evaluation service. So after Keptn was triggering tests in your continuous delivery workflow, then Keptn will evaluate the service quality and can then give you a score if it should be promoted or not, the new version of your application. So it's really something that relates to what was said in the first part of this webinar today. It tries to make the developer's life easier without having you to write all this pipeline code. Keptn comes with an opinion way to do it. It just gives you a CLI and you can work with the CLI. There is no need to write any pipeline code. A lot of things are already baked into Keptn. So why would you want to use Keptn? First of all, because it really makes your life easier as a developer. If you want to check the quality of your service, we have automated quality gates within Keptn, and these are based on SRE best practices. I will show you an example just on the next slide. It comes with multi-stage delivery pipelines. So if you think of having multi-stage delivery like in dev, pre-production, and production, that's basically 3 lines of configuration in Keptn. You would just define you would like to have dev, pre-production, and production, and you would define which kind of deployment strategies, if you want to directly deploy, if you want to have blue-green deployments, these kinds. It's just like one YAML file of configuration, and the actual pipeline code will be generated by Keptn or is part of the Keptn framework. And it has this automated remediation functionality. So in case Keptn receives alerts from the alert manager, from Prometheus, or alerts from other monitoring tools, it can automatically send out notifications to automation tools to trigger some remediation actions. So how are these quality checks done in Keptn? I just want to highlight this because it's a very central part of Keptn. Before I show you how to install it in the Civo Marketplace, I just want to make to stress this a little bit, how we are defining quality, service level quality inside Keptn. And we are using here site reliability engineering concepts. And we are using mostly 2 different concepts. The first one is the service level indicator, and we can think of it as a metric, something like the error rate of the login requests, for example. So it's a very clear defined metric. And the SLO would be some goal, some objective for this metric, like the error rate of login requests within the last 10 minutes is only allowed to be a maximum of 2%. So we allow 2% of errors within the last couple of minutes. So with this, we define some quality checks, and in our multi-stage delivery, we can always check when we want to move the new version of an application from one stage to the other. We will check if the quality is satisfied and we'll block it, or we will open up the quality gate and move it to the next stage. So how can it look like? First of all, by making developers' life easier, Keptn has a built-in library of all the service level indicators, like the error rate, the response time, the throughput. So you don't have to worry about writing PromQL or API calls to any monitoring solution. Keptn has a built-in library for a couple of those already. So for you, they're easy to reuse. And then you define some objectives upon this. And objectives might be something like this. The error rate is only allowed to be the maximum of 1, or the number of database calls between 2 different checks of the quality gate is only allowed to increase by +2%. So in this way, you can write your quality gate for this multi-stage delivery. And when you have Keptn and you start using Keptn, you can trigger this evaluation, and Keptn will reach out to all the data providers that you have configured, like Prometheus or Dynatrace or Neoload or JMeter also. So we have seen a couple of those already provided by the Keptn community. Sorry. Then Keptn will reach out to those providers, will create a score for each of those SLOs, and will come up with a total score, which basically defines if the total evaluation, and you can think of it, you might have hundreds or at least tens of different service level objectives. Keptn will come up with a total score and will give you back this total score. So that's a very powerful but yet simple concept of this quality gate, and everything is based only on these 2 files, the service level indicators and the service level objectives. And you can make use of this by just installing Keptn from the Civo Marketplace. And here, first of all, a big shout out to the open source community, because Keptn was initially not contributed by the Keptn team, but it was actually contributed by the open source community. So the open source community was contributing Keptn to the Civo Marketplace. And I was just picking this up and improving a little bit. But so big shout out to the open source community from both projects. I think it's great to see these communities really engaging with open source project. So Keptn is now listed in the CI/CD section of the Civo Marketplace. And just by clicking on this and clicking on the create button, you will get a new cluster and with Keptn already installed. And I have to say, it's really the advertised experience that really works. So I was really surprised how easy it is to contribute, first of all, to the Civo Marketplace, but also how to use it. So once you use it, we have a couple of post-install steps. That's exactly the same way that we've heard in the first presentation. This is basically the README file that will be presented on the Civo Marketplace, or on the Civo website, where you have your Kubernetes cluster, and it will give you some of those instructions. So first, you would need to have the Keptn CLI on your local machine. You would connect the Keptn CLI to the Civo or to Keptn running in Civo, and you can then open up the Keptn's UI, or you can just check out the Keptn tutorials or documentation how to use Keptn. And what I did during the webinar here, I'm not sure if it actually changed to my terminal now. Can you see my terminal? Yeah, cool. So what I did in the background during this webinar, I just created, a couple of minutes ago, I created my Civo cluster. And what I will do is, actually I need this here. So I have my new Keptn cluster. I have the basic applications installed, but also Keptn. And I can just copy, I already downloaded the Keptn CLI, but I just copy all the instructions, which will make it possible for me to authenticate to my Keptn cluster. And I can then open up the Keptn. First I get the password. And so it will just generate a random password, and I will just, sorry for being a little bit fast here, but it's just that I can show you this. And we can just open up the Keptn's bridge. And it was really just installed a couple of minutes earlier on my fresh Kubernetes or cluster So there are no projects yet, but with this, you have a Keptn installation. It took about, for the cluster to come up and Keptn installed, it took about 2 minutes. And you have a fresh Kubernetes cluster with our Keptn app installed on the Kubernetes cluster. And then you can check out Keptn, following the tutorials or docs, how to create a project and set up a multi-stage delivery. Because when you're developing applications, you might not want to push every application directly to production, but instead you want to have quality checks before you push it to production. And these quality checks and this multi-stage delivery can be done by Keptn. So as said, the Keptn application to the marketplace was contributed by the open source community. So again, thanks a lot for this. And we are happy to receive some feedback. If you like it or if you think it should be improved, we are very eager to hear your feedback. Either on Twitter, it's Keptn Project, or check out our tutorials. We are also in the Civo Slack. We have our own Slack, so there are multiple ways to reach out to us. And as said, it's also an open source project. So if you think you want to contribute also to Keptn, feel free to do so. We are really happy to receive contributions. Yeah, and with this, I'm giving back and then happy also to answer some questions.
Thanks, Jürgen. A quick question for me. What language is Keptn written in?
Most of it's written in Go, and the UI is written in Angular.
Okay. It's just in case anyone wants to help to know which languages they need to have experience of.
Yeah, sure. Most of it's in Golang. Yeah.
Cool. I actually have a question about Keptn from Ayan Satomi. How does Keptn scale in large-scale projects? Let's say Chromium, which spans up to 10 sub-projects and requires each component in its own CI pipeline in LUCI. Never heard of that one. Does Keptn scale well on this kind of situation?
Yeah, it scales because you don't have to write any pipeline code. So if in Keptn, we consider like we have one project, the project, we can think of the application, and then we onboard more services, which are the microservices of this application. And you define a lot of the, like how many stages you want to have, like pre-prod, hardening, prod, whatever. You define this on the project level. So you will define one project, and all the services that directly inherit this project configuration. So they will all be treated in the same way. They already receive this information that they have to be deployed through a couple of different stages. They have to execute some load tests. They have to satisfy some quality criteria. So you can define a lot of it on the project level and not on all the microservice level. This was exactly what we've seen with all the different Jenkins pipelines, copy and pasted hundreds and hundreds of times. And that's one central part that we want to try to solve with Keptn. Okay,
thank you for that. And then the other one was a comment more than a question from Ramiro, which is probably aimed more at Steve, but I don't know if it's actually a question, but I'll read it out anyway. Testing my changes was something that got me a bit nervous when submitting an upgrade to Cert Manager a couple of weeks ago. Automation for this would be pretty nice. Ramiro, has Steve's talk given you some more confidence or ideas on how to do the testing? Have you got any more specific questions around this that would sort of benefit an answer either from us or input from Steve on how we could do it? Feel free to type another question if you've got any further questions on it. Okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I'm certainly willing to help if somebody wants to help build out a test pipeline. I could see the I could see certificate manager being a little interesting just because you're talking to an external service, and I know there's API limits. So I think you'd have to be just cognizant of, you know, overstepping those API limits. But certainly seems possible and actually kind of interesting because it's, yeah, that just got my mind thinking. So yeah, I'm certainly willing to help out. Feel free to reach out to me on Slack.
Fantastic. There you go, Ramiro. Okay, so we're almost done, but Kai is just going to follow up on his talk. So pass back over to Kai.
Yeah. So once I'd appeased the demigods and realized that I wasn't applying the ingress to the right namespace because I wasn't. what we have now is, first of all, Jaeger UI running on my cluster, and the merged pull request that I filled in while it was Steve's talk or possibly Jürgen's. And then the Civo site rebuilt in the last couple of minutes, which means that when you go to your cluster page to look at your applications, what's this under monitoring? All right, Jaeger operator version 1.2.0. So all that was based on one very long line of YAML, or a very long file of YAML defining the namespace and the resources that it needs, a manifest that describes it, little logo file, and custom install that I fixed, and a friendly pull request to a very friendly team here at Civo. So you know, if you want to contribute any kind of project, any kind of app to the marketplace, even if you think like one other person would find it useful, or even if you would just find it useful as something that would help you in the process of you managing your clusters, you know, like just go ahead. It's we're trying to make it as easy and as welcoming as possible. So thanks everybody for listening.
Fantastic. So that's the end of our talks. Have any of the community got any questions? It can be anything Civo related, not necessarily targeted at the talks we've had tonight, although of course they're welcome as well.
So while we just wait for maybe last few questions to come in, just wanted to mention a few things. First of all, thanks to everybody who filled in the Civo customer survey. That was probably the single largest survey that we've done a few weeks back now. We got some amazing feedback out of that. Loads of stuff we're looking to implement going forward, especially post-beta, but also it gave us a lot of confidence that we're on the right track. We had a lot of ideas that are quite further along, and you guys seem to be quite on board with where we're already heading. So that's really promising. So it gives us a lot of confidence. We also ended up sending at least a couple of 100 mugs all over the world, some really far-flung places. So there's lots of colourful Civo Cube 100 mugs winging their way to you if you haven't got them already. I know some of you probably have. I just wanted to mention as well, refer a friend if you're watching this and you've already got a Civo account and you're using us. Please do use our refer a friend program. There's a lot of talk around Civo online at the moment, and there's no reason to not use your referral links because we're rewarding with real cash now with that. So it's definitely worth checking that out. It's available straight from your Civo dashboard. Have a quick thanks to our ambassadors. They've been doing a great job. The ambassadors program's only been live maybe about 6-7 weeks now, and you can see them with the little blue star inside the Slack channel, and they've been an incredible help already. There's only 4 of them, but I just wanted to give those guys a big shout out. I know Jared's in here, you're watching. There's Keith as well, and Milind. Big thanks guys for being a part of this, and Alistair. We're probably going to look to try and add some more people into that community, into ambassadors, so we can spread that further than Slack. What else? And just if you're watching this and you've come in from Twitter, you've seen an advert or anything like that and you haven't actually tried us yet, please do. Civo.com/Cube100 is the place, and you get $70 free credit to try us out, and you'll be up and working with your clusters in under 2 minutes. And we'd love to get your feedback, so we'll see you in the Slack channel. So any questions come in, Andy?
No, just a chase from Ian Satomi saying they never got their mug. So.
Okay, so Ian, if you can drop me a message in Slack, I'll follow up on that. But if we think that's it, I just want to say, as always, there'll be a tiny survey that'll appear at the end of this webinar. If you just fill that in, let us know how we're doing and what you'd like to see more of next time. I think that's about it.
That must be it. Fantastic. Thanks everyone for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thanks everyone for joining us.
Thanks.
Thank you all. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.